at some point in that deal, something's going to go wrong. And it's very important to have somebody you're working with that is quick to report on what's going on, is quick to take action, can do so in a very measured way.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Chronicles. I'm your host, Jonny Catani, and the founder of Catani Capital Group. For the last 2 years, I've been studying alternative assets and now help solve the problem of creating passive cash flow for creators, influencers, and busy professionals by bringing you 5 episodes a week of easy to understand education in the world of passive investing. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Cash Flow Chronicles. I'm your host, Jonny Catani, and I'm joined today by TJ Burns. TJ is the founder and principal of Burns Capital Partners, a real estate-focused private equity firm. After finding success as a passive investor, TJ switched his focus to helping others build wealth through real estate syndications, now raised over $1 million in investor capital across multiple deals, markets, and asset classes. TJ's background is in consumer technology and product design. He's an inventor on 17 plus patents, and his products have shipped to tens of millions of households worldwide. He holds a degree in mechanical engineering from MIT and is a licensed realtor in the state of New York. TJ, welcome to the show.
You almost make it sound like I know what I'm doing there. Thanks for that, Jonny.
And we are friends in real life too. I do want to add that. He didn't put that in the bio, but I think he just ran out of space to type. But we are friends in real life too.
Exactly, man. Yeah, I should have added in the bio, roommates at Raise Fest, right?
That's right. We were roommates in Louisville, Kentucky. What's your take on Louisville after Raise Fest before we get into it here?
Interesting city. I did a long run around the perimeter and unfortunately didn't get to explore it too much just because we were so busy with Raise Fest and meeting a bunch of awesome people there. But would love to go back someday.
Totally. I think what I learned is cool city. January is not the time to go there.
Yeah.
So
right.
For those of you who have Louisville on your list, probably more late spring. I know the summers are probably pretty awesome, but let's get into it. So you've obviously got quite the resume here, right? Obviously done a lot on the product side, consumer side of things we'll kind of get into, but give us kind of a rundown of, your story and what led you to real estate.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you look at my resume now, my life resume, as I call it, and you would say, oh, that's kind of strange. He goes from being an engineer to going into real estate to or not even just real estate, but even more like a sales type area of real estate, So I have my sales license, and then now I work with passive investors, very different skill sets. And when I started in my career in engineering, I didn't set out to build a real estate business right away. Really, I was just looking for a way to generate cash flow, to build wealth, to really invest the money that I was making and saving from my engineering career wisely. And like many other people, that led me directly to real estate. And I went down the real estate rabbit hole, started learning about all the benefits of owning real estate, investing in real estate. And along the way, I was trying to buy my own deals. And I found it to be very, very difficult because I was also working full time. I had a leadership role in this startup that was acquired, and the hours were quite long. It was stressful. I was also living in a very expensive market and competitive market. So I really struggled at first, but I was learning as I went. And once I started to pick up a little bit of traction, I also was introduced to the idea of passive investing. So taking those earnings and instead of buying my own deals, going and investing alongside somebody that already had that traction, had a business in real estate, and was finding great deals and managing great deals. And for me, it was almost a match made in heaven. I could take this income stream that I had doing something that I was well trained and well paid to do in engineering, and plow it into these income producing assets. Invested in to date about 10 of those, and along the way really decided that it was something that I really enjoyed as well. So I found a passion for it. I realized that I had this great network within real estate after spending multiple years learning about it and trying different things. And I had the knowledge too at that point. So I took those three things and I decided, okay, well, if this was my route and passive investing was something that was so beneficial to me, then there were likely other people out there that could benefit from this too, but just hadn't heard about it yet. And that's where my business, Burns Capital Partners, was born, to help those busy professionals also passively invest in real estate.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, it's a unique story, right? In that, obviously you started passively and identified pretty quickly that, you want to bring other people over to this industry, because despite, a lot of people have done this, right? In that they started passively, kind of end up either going active or to the capital raising side. But for some reason, it's still an alternative asset. And, there's not this big push, everybody moving to real estate. At least, when you kind of take a step back, that's what's happening with us being in the industry. It feels like that's what's actually happening. But then you go to raise capital and you're like, oh, wait, people aren't actually just going to write me a check just because they have the money. What was, you've obviously got Burns Capital now, you're starting to build your brand. What's been kind of the key? What have you identified as that, and helping people to kind of understand to get them to ultimately write the checks?
Yeah. So there's this concept of what's called being famous to a few that I've really been working on. And what that means is really building your brand around a couple of people and being the expert in that group, being very helpful to that group. So where I work now, it's a big tech corporation. There's actually internal real estate investor groups. And I do whatever I can to be helpful in those groups, whether that person is trying to actively invest or passively invest. It really doesn't matter to me whether I'm going to work with them or not work with them. I try to be as helpful as I possibly can. And through that, I learn a lot myself, but I also realize how much I know in the business. And that also naturally, it attracts people to my business if it's a fit for them. Right. So I have calls with investors weekly where they say, hey, I heard you on X, or I saw your post on LinkedIn, and it seems exactly like what I was looking for. I don't know anything about it. And that's where the education process starts. And you're right that you and I are in this bubble where it seems like everybody in the world's a real estate syndicator, because because we talk with people all the time that are doing these awesome deals in all these different markets. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Most people don't know anything about this business. They don't even understand that it's an option for them. They don't understand the benefits or the risks or what the next steps are. So a lot of my time is also spent on the education portion. And people don't invest in things that they don't understand. So that is a critical first step in order to get people from, I know nothing about this, to this actually is perfect for me. How do I invest?
Totally. Yeah, I love that. It's so true. And what have you identified in that initial step from getting someone who's like, hey, this sounds like something I'm interested in, but I have no idea, to, okay, I understand enough, I want to invest?
Yeah. So I have an ebook that I wrote. It's like 25 pages, and it kind of walks through my entire journey, why I went from active to passive, all the different things involved with passive investing. And you understand that there's a number of different steps, from what's the process look like to passively invest? What are these assets we're buying? What's the business plan associated with them? Why should I invest with you? And that's a question that everybody has, but sometimes people are too polite to ask it that way. But it's a good one, right? So for me, it usually starts with the content that I put out on social media, because it's a great way to reach people without without being pushy, I'd say, or you can just kind of put out your content. If people are interested in it, they will engage with it. Then they get more content like that, and it's a great way for them to learn, right? And then at a certain point, people will potentially reach out to you, and that happens to me all the time. People say, "Hey, I saw you on X. Let's book a call," and then I can get a better understanding of what their specific needs are, because some investors value things that other investors might not value. Whether it be somebody is really interested in tax benefits and building a very efficient income producing portfolio in terms of taxes. Somebody else, maybe they're very interested in building a high growth portfolio, and they don't really care about cash. Things like that are very helpful for me to understand, right? And once we have that initial phone call, I can gather some more information about their situation. I can answer any questions that they have, and then usually it's from there I can now start to send them real offerings, right? And then they can look at those. They can start to understand a little bit more about what the process is like, and eventually, if one comes along that meets their criteria, then it opens the door to more conversations and then potentially partnerships.
That's awesome. I love it. And I love how diligent you are, because that's really the key, right? Because there's a difference between getting someone to invest one time and having someone invest over the long period, right? And it starts with that initial sort of education piece. And like you said, someone who has a high income right now and wants to stay in their W-2 maybe doesn't necessarily need cash flow right now, right? Maybe they want to build up a nest egg with, some kind of development deals, right? And stuff that will take a long time, but they'll 2x their money easily, right? And they won't see any cash flow the whole time because they don't need it. Or someone who wants cash flow and get into a deal like the TechVestor deal where they're going to see cash flow right away, and that's really ultimately what gets people to invest with you, right? It is being that piece to help them understand. Now, your avatar is obviously, you're dealing with pretty intelligent people, right? Typically going to be in the engineering space. What are some of the hurdles? What are some things that hold people back? Like maybe one or two things that you've seen that have held people back from ultimately investing.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to keep harping on it, but the education portion is huge. I'd say that's the biggest part. People say, "Hey, this sounds really interesting, but I just don't know enough about it yet," and that's okay. To your point, I'm planning to be in this business for the next 20 plus years, so that's completely fine. If you need more time to learn, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to continue to educate my investors. So it's more just like a matter of time with those types of people. And then for other people, it might be that this type of investment just isn't, exactly what they're looking for right now. I mean, as you know, there's requirements in terms of like the amount of money that you're going to put into each deal. Usually check sizes of $50,000 or more. Some people, they for whatever reason, they don't want to invest in real estate. I'd say it's a very, very small number of people. I believe that everybody should invest in real estate and should have real estate in their portfolio. And that's not REITs. That's directly ownership of real estate, whether through active investments or passive investments. But honestly, I haven't gotten a lot of pushback, and I think that's because I structure my funnel in a way where I'm not going and reaching out to people. I'm just making it known that this is what I do. And it's been very, very helpful to me and for my family. And it's something I'm going to continue to invest in, both personally and to grow this business. And naturally, I only deal with people that resonates with. So when we have that first conversation, they already have a ton of background info on my business and me and what I do. And it's more like, okay, how do I move forward?
That's awesome. I love it. And that's a huge piece, right? Because it's really the know, like, and trust. Like you said in the beginning, a lot of people struggle to ask the question, why should I invest with you? But that's really what it comes down to, right? Is providing that education, and then ultimately letting people decide for themselves if now's the right time or whatever it may be. Now,
Right. And I'll add there too
yeah,
that my avatar is me, right? It's who I am and who I was 3 years ago. So that's helpful too. The familiarity aspect, where the people that I'm talking to, they see themselves in me, and I can directly relate to what their struggles are, what their needs are, what their goals are. And to your point about, why should I invest with you versus somebody else? I think that's super powerful.
totally. Absolutely. I mean, that's really the biggest key. And, for a lot of people, real estate is new, right? Like you mentioned. And if you're paying attention to the news, or even just, a little bit, it feels like, the walls are caving in. And due diligence now is as important, the most important thing. Kind of talk about, one thing that I think not a lot of people notice is how much is going on in the background for us before an investor is even seeing a deal or an opportunity. So kind of touch on what your process is like for due diligence, and that, so that when you are presenting to an investor, they can feel confident that, this deal has been vetted and is potentially a good opportunity.
Yeah, of course. So it always starts with the people for me. There are people that I work with that are absolute rock stars. And I know everybody, if you think about somebody in your life and your network that you're like, man, everything that person touches just turns to gold. That's how I feel about some of the operators that I work with. And those relationships are built up over a number of years, right? So since I started in the passive investing, in that route, I got a front row seat as to how some of these operators work, and I can see their communication. I can see the types of deals that they look for, how they underwrite. That doesn't only influence like my education and teach me things, but it builds that relationship, and it tells me who are the people to work with, right? So that's the first thing is who am I working with? Does that person have a track record of not only good deals, but of success in their life? Because then I can say, okay, well, I think they're going to continue to be successful. And that's built up, like I said, over years. It's very hard to get that from a few interactions. And the next thing is the market and the deal itself. So does the market that we're purchasing in support the business plan and the asset from a couple different angles? It's from employment, from population, statistics, supply and demand, zoning regulation or government regulation. And I know those things have been discussed probably many times in this podcast as well, because they're pretty standard across all different syndicators, right? And for me, that's where I really lean into the knowledge that I've gained over the last 7 years in real estate is, does this market make sense? And then does the business plan that we're going to enact when we purchase this asset make sense?
That's awesome. I love it. That's it's a standard process, like you mentioned, but what it comes down to is that first part, right? The people, and really building that relationship. And what's crucial for people to understand, especially, going to you, is with these relationships, like you said, you've been developing over years, invested yourself before you're even bringing this deal, their next deal to, your potential group, so you've not only gotten to know them, potentially on a personal level, but on a financial level as well with your own capital. And then you're bringing the deal to people, which is just an even bigger level, and I wish people understood how big of a level that actually was, like, hey, not only have I invested before, but I'm going to invest again, and now I'm bringing the opportunity to you as well. And I think over time people start to understand that, but when you're new, it can be overwhelming.
Mhm.
So what have been some keys in that sense to, have there been some operators that you've invested with and you're like, I'm actually not going to raise for any of their deals? Or have you been pretty solid in the relationships in terms of like what you've done personally and then bringing the deals to your investors?
Yeah, so my background in engineering, it's in consumer product design and more specifically in like consumer electronics, high volume consumer electronics. So when we put a design together, we're making millions of these things usually. And because the scale of them is quite small, even the tiniest little detail, like I'm talking fractions of a millimeter, have the potential to just completely nuke a program and cost the company hundreds of millions of dollars. And the reason I bring that up is because I've been trained to be very, very critical of projects, right? Because, like I said, it has the potential to have these huge consequences. So, in the deals that I've invested in, I've worked with a number of different fund managers and operators. Some of the operators I don't even know personally. I've just invested through trusted fund managers, and yeah, I'd say that I've definitely picked up a couple of things where I would have to dive into them further and really understand their business. Communication is a huge one. It's For me, there needs to be very open and transparent lines and quick lines of communication with whoever I'm partnering with, because there will always be things that go wrong in these deals at some point. Even if the deal is a fantastic deal over a 5-year hold, at some point in that deal, something's going to go wrong. And it's very important to have somebody you're working with that is quick to report on what's going on, is quick to take action, can do so in a very measured way. So communication is probably one of the biggest ones. Having experience in what they're doing is very important too. So for example, one operator that I love to work with, I think he's done like 50 or so of the deals that I would invest in, and I'm probably going to invest in and continue to partner with on, like exactly like that.
Wow.
Value add, multifamily, very, very rinse and repeat in this one market, buying this one deal. That type of experience to me is very important. And then not everybody has that, right? Not everybody can say, hey, I've done 50 of these and this is the 51st. It's exactly like the other ones. Here are my conservative numbers. I could do these deals in my sleep. But those are the types of deals where I'm like, okay, I feel great about this, so I'd say those two things are quite important.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so true. It's kind of a catch-22 in the industry because, so many people want to see a track record. You can't really get a track record until some people kind of take a chance with you. So,
Mm-hmm.
on one end, you do want to say, hey, listen, like, here's this big track record. It's their 51st deal, rinse and repeat. But like you said, with communication and transparency, you can be open with people and say, hey, listen, this is only the 4th time they've done this, but here's what they've done on these other 4. Here's why I still like them. And through those lines of communication can still, take a little bit more risk, but, risk adjusted, right? And still find good deals with someone who maybe hasn't done 50 of them. Which is why I love this industry so much. And you've clearly identified that you want to stay on the passive side. What are some big reasons for staying passive and staying on this fund side and the capital side?
Yeah, I think people should focus on whatever is their best return of their time. If you're somebody that has worked 10 years in engineering and you're climbing the corporate ladder, and you it takes up a lot of your time, but it also it pays off to do that, then it makes sense to continue to do that and then also to passively invest. Now, if you're going to go and get into real estate, how I looked at it was, all right, well, what's the best way in which I can add value to other people? Because I always wanted to partner with people as a way to multiply, the impact that I could make, and then the rewards that I would get from any given transaction. So when I was entering the business, I said, okay, well, why would anybody partner with me? Right? If somebody is worth partnering with, if they're experienced, if they're doing great deals, what can I bring to the table to them? And what I realized was that the best way for me to partner was to focus more on the capital side of things. To take my network in tech and to leverage that and benefit both operators and that network by kind of bridging the gap, right? So for me, it made all the sense in the world. Somebody that is coming more from the operator side, maybe they've worked their way up and have bought a duplex and a 3-unit and then a 4-unit, then an 8-unit. That might be their best way to add value to somebody. So I think it has a lot to do with your background. For me, it was the most logical step to go from engineer to passive investor to then active investor, more on the fund side and more on the capital side.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, that's, it sounds like you obviously enjoy your day-to-day still, right? And I love that you put that anecdote in there about, hey, I'm the opposite, right? I hated the W-2 world. I was never an engineer or, high up in the corporate ladder. And so I didn't like it. But there are people who enjoy it and are growing and building in that and want to stay. And I love that you put that there, because this industry provides any avenue that you want. And that's why I think we both really identified why we love it so much. But it really does provide really whatever you're looking for. And hey, if commercial real estate doesn't sound great to you, you can go buy duplexes and single family homes. And heck, you can trade water rights if you want, you know what I mean? Like there's really something for everyone, which is so awesome. So as we kind of wind down here, as you're really starting to get momentum with Burns Capital, what's your goal for 2023 and kind of moving forward over the next few years?
Yeah, so would like to 5x the amount of capital raised from 2022 into 2023. So that'd be about $5 million. But really beyond that, I just want to continue to grow my investor base and add value to them. So I've been focusing a lot, on getting my name out there, expanding my brand, kind of letting people know what I'm doing. And so far, that's been working out quite well. I'm just continuing to book calls and bring people into the ecosystem. And on the other end of it, I'll continue to find good quality partners, that we can bring great deals to our investors with and create these win-win scenarios.
I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, you're obviously well on your way. $1 million is no easy feat. 5 million, of course, even exponential from there. And, I wish people understood even what raising, $100,000 means. So it's awesome. And I know you'll get there and beyond. So we'll go ahead and wind down here and jump to the final 5. First question, best advice you've gotten from a mentor?
Ooh, best advice. That's a good question. I wish I came prepared, but something that I've been thinking a lot about recently is you have to find meaning in what you do, right? If you're not finding meaning in your work, you're not going to be very good at it over the long term. So, just finding meaning in whatever you're doing, finding purpose in it is good advice.
I love it. Absolutely. What is it about your career that makes you feel like you're fulfilling your why?
The helping people aspect is pretty fulfilling for me. Every time I get to send out distributions to investors, that's probably the best part of the month.
Totally. Yeah, we just had our first, been an arduous process to get these distributions out. And no fault to to either side, right? Just there's some, one thing with a fund is you add an extra step sometimes. But yes, today is officially distribution day, and it's pretty incredible feeling for sure. Favorite non-real estate or investment related book?
You know what? I'm a big fan of figuring out how to turn your brain off before you go to sleep. So a lot of people in this business are high achievers, and I bet a lot of your listeners feel that same way, especially in the world we live in, where there's access to technology 24/7. Something that's been really helpful to me is just reading fiction before bed. So, the James Patterson series is, you probably don't get that one often at all. You probably get a lot of business books, but and I've been that guy too. I think I tracked in 2019 how many business books I read. I think I read like one every 2 weeks or something ridiculous. Wow. I love to read. Yeah. But none of that is as impactful as just figuring out how to get good rest and be ready for the next day. And for me, reading James Patterson before bed has been that.
I love it. That's awesome. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Any superpower? I think the Aquaman, whatever his superpower is, being a fish and a human, that'd be pretty cool. I grew up on the water, and that's something that would be pretty awesome.
Totally. And everybody wants to fly, and you're like, cool, yeah, I'll just swim there. Don't worry.
Yep.
Cool. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you and learn more?
Yeah. So burnscapital.co is my website. If you go there, you'll get access to all the material I put out, my ebook, my due diligence checklist, and then TJ Burns on LinkedIn. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out, even if you have any questions related to active or passive real estate investing.
Sweet. We will link that in the show notes, make it super easy. TJ, always good to talk to you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Johnny.
Absolutely. Thank you again for tuning in. Who do you know that wants more cash flow? Share this episode with them so you can grow your cash flow together. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you're subscribed on your platform of choice so you never miss a new episode. Go to CataniCapitalGroup.com to learn more.